What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Party on Broad. Today, we are breaking down the best of the best at the defensive tackle position in the 2023 NFL Draft. Guys with the most upside, day three sleepers, and much more. Joining me, as always, he is Mark Schofield. Go give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Schofield. What's up, Mark?
Crocky, what's going on, my friend? It is great to be here with you. Another fascinating position. We've hit some important ones. Obviously, we hit quarterback out of the gate, corner, which I think, as we talked about, maybe the most fascinating, maybe the deepest position in this entire draft. You know, we did edge rushers, always a fascinating topic, guys to get after the quarterback. Now we get to the position group that may have the best overall player in the draft. I think it's interesting, this draft class, right? Because perhaps the two best overall football players are a defensive tackle in the guy we're going to talk about in a minute, and a running back in Bijan Robinson. And both of them might slide for a number of different reasons, one of which is positional value. Because how high do you value an interior defensive tackle in today's NFL? How high do you value a running back in today's NFL? And of course, there are other issues with Carter as well, but a fascinating position group. And again, a position where we might see the Eagles address it early, a 10. Could Carter be there? Maybe. So it's a great group, and I'm excited to dive in.
If Carter is at number 10, Howie better be sprinting to that podium and making that selection. Because
I mean, imagine for a moment Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, the interior of your defensive front for the next 6 years. Like that. What else do you need? I mean, you're talking about two defensive tackles who are so good at what they do. Take it on doubles, at split and doubles. Carter, extremely explosive for a player of his size. Got a very good first step. You watch his game against TCU. The line of scrimmage was -2 if you're TCU, because he's constantly resetting that line of scrimmage 2 yards deep in the backfield. He gets pressure as an interior pass rusher, as a pocket pusher. I wrote it down. He's a game changer at the defensive line, at the interior defensive line position. Just an absolutely tremendous talent. It's rare. It's a unicorn type of prospect. If he's there at 10, they get 10 minutes in the first round, right? There's a 15. I always forget. Either way, the clock should not get past 1 minute of time elapsed before that card is turned in.
Yeah, if you can find a rare athlete with that level of twitch at that position, with that level of pass rushing ability, man, that's just the engine of an elite defense, man. But
absolutely. And I understand that there are questions about Carter, and I understand that he may slide. And there are rumors and rumblings and smoke about him being taken off some boards and things like that. I don't look at any of that. Like, I don't have the ability to sit down and talk to him. Drew Rosenhaus would never return a phone call of mine in his life, and why would he? So I can't dive into all that stuff. What I can see is between the lines on the field. And what I see is an absolutely, like you said, rare talent, a game-changing type player at interior defensive tackle. He's defensive tackle 1. Like, he might be the best overall player in this draft. Of course, there are other things that go into it. We don't know that. We know what's on the field, and what's on the field is defensive tackle 1.
And let's go into your defensive tackle 2 and 3.
Yeah, and a little bit different than consensus, perhaps. But for me, 2 is Brian Bresee from Clemson.
All right.
And what's interesting about him, you know, we did a show earlier about edges, right? And Myles Murphy, we talked about him, the other Clemson defensive player up front. And, you know, we talked about his sort of slide a little bit and why that seemed a little strange to us, because he's a talented player. And talking to people in Indianapolis, talking to some other scouts and evaluators, most of them told me, yeah, Murphy's good, but Bresee is the better of the 2 Clemson defensive players up front. And studying him, you see the ability to anchor against doubles, the ability to play as a 5 tech, as a 3 tech. He can move inside, plays with effort, great hands, quick hands, has a number of pass rushing moves as an interior pass rusher. They used him on loops. They used him as stunts. They could scheme some stuff up for him at Clemson. You see some athleticism. You see some burst. I saw him test in person. I was impressed with it. For me, he's DT2. Now, I understand the guy that we're going to talk about next seems to be climbing upwards, but for me, Bresee is DT2.
Love it. Yeah, I never understood why he's so polarizing. I've got a top 20 grade on Bresee, but like people are out on that.
I don't see it at all. And one of the people I talked to is somebody that scouts offensive lineman, defensive lineman, was an offensive lineman in college. And he said, look, that's the guy I didn't want to play. A guy like that is not what I'd want to see lined up against because he's going to make you fight on every snap. If you have one slip up with your hand placement, one slow get off, he's going to drive you into the backfield. He basically said, he's like a poor man's Jalen Carter is how he described it to me. I don't know why he slided. And it's fascinating to see sort of his arc, again, NFL mock draft database. Mock drafts are an imperfect data point. I get it. But he's somebody that back in December was inside the top 5. And now he's like fringe first round. I don't get it at all. And if Carter's off the board and Bresee's there at 10, and that's the pick for the Eagles, I would totally understand it. I would understand it in a heartbeat. But if the guy we're going to talk about next is there, the fit in Philly, like this is sometimes the difference of people, you might have a big board, but then when you start talking about the fit for a particular team, like if we were doing an Eagles specific 1, 2, 3, the guy at 3 might be 2 for me for the Eagles.
Yeah, I think people, look at the surface stats when it comes to Brian Bresee, and they're not popping, they're not flashy, but you watch the tape and you just watch his games, man. He's just a disruptive force every time. But who's your DT3? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Calijah Kancey. It's Kancey from Pittsburgh. He's 3 for me. But like I said, I was talking to some people at SBNation.com today. We're working on a mock draft. We're talking about different scheme fits. Him next to Davis. If you're not going to get Carter next to Davis, then the juxtaposition in a way of Kancey next to Jordan Davis fascinates me because you've got the big body Jordan Davis that could be that sort of double and sometimes a triple team eater. And that's just going to free up a guy that is so quick, that is so explosive. And maybe he's a bit of a unicorn in the sense that he's a bit undersized. You look at his relative athletic score and everything is green, but for the side stuff where he's small. Like he's small by defensive tackle standards, but he's so athletic. He's so explosive. His game against Virginia, he had 3 sacks in that game, one of which was on a flea flicker, and he beat the ball to the quarterback on the flea flicker. There was a sack where he had at the start of the 3rd quarter. He's so explosive off the ball, Crocky, that he's on the quarterback before the quarterback finishes his drop. He's so fast, so quick, so explosive. Now, that's great. Now, is he a sort of every down player? I don't know, like the undersized aspect to it. But what he does, how he wins, it's eye-popping.
And how the Eagles love to rotate their defensive linemen in different situations. Makes a lot of sense.
He does make a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, you look at what they've got up front. You look at the talent they've got up front. I mean, using him in some sub situations in place of Cox, in place of Williams, like there's a lot that they could do next year if they decide that he's going to be their pick.
Absolutely. Let's roll on to our next question. Who is the defensive tackle prospect with the most upside?
I think it's Kancey because, you watch him and the comparisons are easy. It's like, oh, well, he's Pitt. He's undersized. He's Aaron Donald. I mean, anytime you could put somebody in that conversation, that's a lot of upside. I don't know if he gets there. Aaron Donald is probably one of one. But you look at the way he tested, you look at the quickness, you look at the explosiveness. If that translates to the Sunday game, as we saw him do it in the Saturday game, man, that could be special. I mean, if you're talking about somebody that can win that quickly, that could get into the backfield that quickly, that can disrupt passing plays almost immediately after the snap, that can force a quarterback off of the spot before they finish their drop, that's a rare thing to have for a defense.
Love it. Moving on to the most underrated defensive tackle prospect in the NFL draft.
Mozzie Smith from Michigan.
Nice. Okay.
I know, look, his battle with TCU, with the guard from TCU, Avila, who Duke Manyweather has been talking about, and, he's been highlighting clips of him, past couple of weeks now. He had his, he had some losses in that game, but I think he's extremely powerful. He can win with strength, win with effort. You watch him against Purdue, number of examples where he's resetting that line of scrimmage, maybe not as consistently as, say, a guy like Carter will or a guy like Bresee will, but you can see him doing a great job on the interior against guards, against centers. No, probably doesn't have the toolkit that you might see from some of the guys we've already talked about as a pass rusher with his hands. And he could probably round that out more. And if he does, I think there's a lot of upside. I think he could be better at anchoring the line of scrimmage, taking on doubles. Probably doesn't do that as consistently as Bresee, for example. But I think when you get into that late first, early second kind of range, there's some talent there. There's a reason to like him. There's some value there. So in a world where Philly decides, look, you know what? We're not going to address it at 10. We're not going to address it at 31. We're going to wait on defensive tackle because we've got some depth there. If he's there at 62, I think it makes sense. I don't know if he'll be there, but if he is, I think it would make a lot of sense.
A day two guy that I've thought about a lot is Tuli Tuipulotu out of USC. He has unbelievable production, ridiculous production, great versatility, shows up at the combine, loses 20 pounds at 266-pound interior defensive tackle. Great pass rusher, just like Calijah Kancey. And I've gone back and forth.
Sense, right, that he was like, I want to be an edge. I'm going to play as an edge, so I'm going to lose weight and be fast. And it's like, I don't know. In this edge group, I don't know, man. Like, yeah.
He's one that I've gone back and forth. Is he a defensive tackle? Is he an edge? Is he a tweener? And is that a negative? I don't know. Maybe that is the future of the NFL.
If you're putting himself into that, if you're putting him into that sort of tweener category, you're then up against guys like Nolan Smith. That's a tough place to be. I like him a lot on film. I'm curious about sort of his pre-draft thought process.
Yep, absolutely. Last question of the evening. Who is your day three defensive tackle prospect that's not being talked about enough?
Byron Young from Alabama. I've got a soft spot for Alabama defenders in general because I think, look, if you play under Saban, and I'm getting there with Georgia guys too. Look, we already did a show earlier in the series, Nolan Smith at edge 2 for me. I'm getting there with Georgia guys under Kirby Smart. But if you play for Saban, you're ready to take on an NFL defense. I've seen Nick Saban's playbook. It's war and peace, my friend. It's lawn. And if you're going to be effective in that, you're going to be ready to play in the NFL game. But good vision, good power, good change of direction skills, good awareness for an interior defensive tackle. He had a sack against Mississippi this year where he's going in, he's going out, he's going in again. Mirroring Jackson Dart, getting home for the sack. He had some impressive reps as a pure pass rusher off of the edge. He's got a long arm technique that he likes to use. Can certainly win with power. Saw some versatility from him. And they used him a lot in some of their twist and stunt games with Will Anderson where, he's ended up on the outside against tackles. And there's some versatility there that I really liked studying him. And so for me, day three guy, Byron Young, he's being mocked, I think, in the 4th or 5th round right now. I like him start at day 3.
Another guy I like is Moro Ojomo out of Texas. He's a day 3 guy. Sometimes what you're good at is a good thing when it comes to coming to the NFL. And what Moro Ojomo does is stop the run. He's one of the premier run stoppers in college last year. He was the 4th highest. He had the 4th highest run defensive grade in the country among defensive tackles. He's not a big guy. He's right around 300 pounds, but really good quickness, well coached. He's a polished player. I love that guy on day 3. Any thoughts on Moro Ojomo?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about him. He's sort of like, first and second down, plug and play player at the next level. Is he going to give you 5 or 6 sacks a season from the interior? Probably not. But if we're seeing a reevaluation of the run game in the NFL, right? And this too high world we're living in, you need guys that can play gap and a half, right? Maybe you're not going to find, especially on day 3, a pure 2-gap type of player, but you need somebody to play gap and a half that can stop the run, that can account for that lack of an extra body down in the box because you're playing too high. He fits that bill well. And so if they decide to go that route on day 3, it would make a lot of sense.
All right. That is the Mark Schofield. Again, give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Schofield. Nobody does it better. Mark, what do you got going on over at SB Nation, man?
Well, we're going to have you covered for the draft. Obviously, we've got basically a site-wide effort. We're doing all sorts of pieces, rankings, all that fun stuff over at sbnation.com. You can follow me on Twitter. There it is, at Mark Schofield. Also doing the F1 stuff as well. We got a little bit of a gap until we get to Azerbaijan, but we got Azerbaijan Grand Prix coming up at the end of April, so I'll have that covered as well. And then we've got 3 races in the States. Maybe I'll be able to get to one of them and keep pressuring the higher-ups to send me maybe to Vegas in November. But obviously, the draft stuff, we get you covered. SBNation.com.
We might have to get you on round 2, Sixers versus Celtics, if that actually happens.
We might have to do that.
Yeah.
We might have to do that come springtime, my friend.